Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
A Manila court has ruled that former Bamban Mayor Alice Go is in fact a Chinese national, not a Filipino.
A Muntinlupa court reaffirms its earlier decision acquitting Laila de Lima and her former aide Ronnie Dayan.
A Cavite Solon vows to refile the proposed wage hike bill when the 20th Congress opens.
1 in 5 Filipinos went hungry at least once in the past 3 months, according to the latest SWS survey. Now, first in the news, Filipinos in Israel have started undergoing psychological debriefing following the tension with Iran. Now, here's the report.
Nights in Israel have been lit up almost daily by ballistic missiles fired by Iran over the past week. A similar situation is unfolding in Iran, which is now being retaliated against by Israel. Following a ceasefire agreement, psychosocial debriefings were promptly launched for some Filipinos living in Israel. The Philippine Embassy worked hand-in-hand with the Department of Health to facilitate these sessions.
May peculiarity rin ito kasi available din most likely mga kababayan natin sa gabi, Israeli time. Kasi yun lang yung time na tapos na sila magtrabaho. But the embassy, I personally believe na importante ito para sa mental well-being ng mga kababayan natin.
Despite the hardships brought by the war, only a little over 300 out of more than 30,000 Filipinos in Israel have formally requested repatriation.
Mas prefer ko dito kaysa sa Pinas. Walang gera at hindi ka tamad, malaki kikitain mo.
Siguro 95% o higit pa na walang may gustong umuwi pa sa ngayon dahil maayos po ang aming lagay, maayos po ang pakikisama.
The Philippine Embassy in Tel Aviv has recommended lowering Israel's alert status from level 3 to level 2. But according to DFA Undersecretary Ed De Vega, the department cannot rush such decisions. Meanwhile, financial aid from the embassy continues for Filipinos who lost their jobs due to the war, including more than 70 workers in the hotel industry affected by the temporary shutdown of hotels around the Dead Sea. Shelter has also been arranged for 125 out of 140 Filipinos who were displaced by missile attacks.
House prosecutors hit back at Vice President Sara Duterte, accusing her of making false claims in her defense. Their official reply is now with the Senate Impeachment Court. Mobile journalist Merimon Reyes has the report.
Respondent Duterte had made several misleading and false material statements. This was written on the first page of the House prosecutor's reply to Vice President Sara Duterte's answer ad cautelam. The Senate, as the impeachment court officially received last Friday at 1:38 p.m., 6 copies of the 37-page reply from the House prosecution panel. While the media is yet to receive a full copy, House prosecution panel spokesperson Attorney Antonio Bucoy shares in a press conference that the reply seeks for the proceeding of the impeachment trial, rebutting the claims of Vice President Sara Duterte on the impeachment against her being a scrap of paper and violative of the one-year bar rule in the Constitution as baseless, clarifying that the only impeachment complaint initiated by the House was the fourth one approved in February, and not those from December last year, proving there was no circumvention of the one-year bar. The reply also emphasizes that the allegations against the VP are based on facts and evidences that weren't actually rectified by Duterte in her filed answer ad cautelam.
Hindi ho niya sinagot yung mga factual allegations eh. Sinabi lang niya, hindi totoo yan. Wala siya nun sapagkat. So, sa amin ho, sa batas yan, that's an admission.
Meanwhile, according to Senate Secretary Renato Bantug as clerk of court, while this, so far, is the most the impeachment proceeding supposedly could go under the 19th Congress, especially since the authorization of the House prosecutors ends on June 30, how it rolls out would still depend on the calls of the impeachment court that is yet to reconvene. The House is also set to complete its compliances to the impeachment court's order, submitting its certification of the lawfulness of the endorsed impeachment complaint last Wednesday, with the attestation of the next Congress wanting to continue with the trial expected to be submitted soon.
In between now and the next step, it's up to the parties, it's up to the court. And also the parties, if they wish to file anything in between now and in the future.
Senator judges will be given a copy of the House prosecutor's reply on Monday. While this is underway, the question remains the same. How will the impeachment roll out? And will the fate of Vice President Sara Duterte be sweet or bitter? Mobile journalist Merrimon Reyes, we are One News.
Meanwhile, the House of Representatives prosecution panel is asking the Senate Impeachment Court to reject Vice President Sara Duterte's bid to dismiss the impeachment case against her. The details in this report by Mobile Journal, Amy Atienza.
House prosecutors already submitted the reply to Vice President Sara Duterte's answer ad cotelum on Friday, a day before its given deadline.
So, they want a shortcut. Wala ng trial. Dismiss na lang. Kaya doon sa prayer namin, i-deny yung kanilang motion to dismiss. Hindi ba sabi niya, gusto niya ng trial. She wants a bloodbath. Bubble bath eh. Hindi bloodbath, bubble bath. Hindi ba?
These were the exact words of impeachment spokesperson Attorney Odi Bukoy after expecting a bloodbath battle on the impeachment of Vice President Sara Duterte. The House of Representatives were given 5 days to reply after the Vice President's answer ad cotelum. VP Sara insisted to dismiss her impeachment case, citing reasons such as the absence of impeachment articles from the lower chamber. In his defense, Bukoy said,
kung maaalala ninyo, nag-issue ng kautusan ang impeachment court, sinasabi na na padalan ng writ of summons si Vice President Sara at ilakip dito yung articles of impeachment. So, nung sinerve po yung summons na yung articles of impeachment, na natanggap naman niya and sinagot niya.
Further, Bukoy mentioned that there were no clear justifications for the allegations from VP Sara. Regardless, the impeachment spokesperson remained optimistic that the impeachment trial would push through.
Ulitin ko ho, we trust the process of impeachment. We trust that the senators' judges will perform their constitutional duty and abide by their oath. Ngayon, kung ilalagay nila sa boto yan, hindi namin mapipigil yan. Dahil sila ho yung husgado eh.
And if all else does not go to its constitutional processes, the House is open to the idea to raise the concern to the Supreme Court.
Ang recourse namin, later on, pag nangyari yan, maaaring umakyat kami. Maaaring umakyat kami sa Supreme Court.
As of now, the House prosecution panel awaits for a possible pre-trial for the impeachment of Vice President Sara Duterte. Mobile journalist Amy Atienza, we are One News.
Yung mga reply ng prosecution na sinend sa impeachment court, that's one of the last few moves sa 19th Congress daw.
Yes, oo. Kumbaga parang yun nga, di ba, out of the 12 or 11 steps, nandun na sila sa 11. Appearance na ni Vice President Sara Duterte. But of course, yesterday, nagkaroon ng mga interviews si Senator, incoming Senator Ping Lacson regarding
yes,
this. Yung usapin pa rin na baka daw mag-move, di ba, to dismiss yung ilang mga senador at pagbotohan yun. Sinasabi ni Senator Chis Escudero, pwede daw gawin yun. Pero ang para kay Senator Ping Lacson, hindi. Diba? Kasi according to the Constitution, and other legal luminaries also are saying this, na ang duty ng impeachment court is to try and decide, hindi mag-move to dismiss. In
an impeachment court, one function only is to hear the evidence, and pag mahina evidence, mag-acquit. Pag malakas, guilty verdict. Plus, si VP Sara has already made her intent to file a motion to dismiss. So while sabi ng iba, bakit magpa-file din ng mga ibang senador ng motion to dismiss? Ano kayo? Parang, ulit tayo, nag-aabogado ba kayo?
Nag-aabogado daw.
Oo.
So, yun nga yung sinasabi ni Senator Ping Lacson. Parang saan ka naman daw nakakita na ikaw yung judge, tapos ikaw din yung motion for dismiss, ikaw din magpupukpuk ng ng
gabi. Oo.
Diba? Para dun sa naging desisyon mo. So, yung others are saying, even the spokesperson sa prosecution panel, nagsalita si Attorney Bukoy, diba, na they may file this, umakit sila sa Supreme Court. And by doing this, sabi, di ba parang nakakahiya din na i-reprimand ng Supreme Court ang Senate dun sa if ever mali yung gagawin nila. And kaya lang, on the other side naman, they're saying na medyo matagal naman din kasi mag-desisyon ng Supreme Court.
Pero
diba?
I remember asking si spokesperson Tonggol, Attorney Reginald Tonggol, about what if pumunta kayo ng Supreme Court and then they rule not in favor of the impeachment court. Now, is the impeachment court bound by the Constitution na sumunod sa Supreme Court or discretion ng impeachment court? Sabi niya, well...
Susunod daw eh.
No, not really. No, sabi niya parang, well, may precedence daw before that the impeachment court did not
abide by the
interpretation of the Supreme Court. But and the optics of this kasi does not look good sa investor in climate sentiment, diba? Na hindi nagkakasundo yung mga branches of government.
Alam naman natin ng Supreme Court as much as possible, lalo na kapag panag-uusapan yan yung Congress at saka yung Senate, diba? Medyo hindi sila nakikialam pagdating sa proseso. Pero
internal process kasi yan eh.
Pero yun nga, kung may magsasampa nito sa Supreme Court, syempre, they will need to issue a resolution regarding this. Pero yung timeline, nakikita natin baka medyo, kasi matagal mag-release ng decision ng Supreme Court, diba? Kaya nga tawagan nila dyan, the gods of Padre Faura. But we will see, and again, time and again, pag nagkakaroon tayo ng discussion dito, lagi natin sinasabi, huwag tayo lost in translation, diba? Kumbaga na, kung bakit ba natin pinag-uusapan itong mga proseso nito, importante yan. But also, we should be talking about ano yung context, bakit nagkakaroon ng ganitong impeachment trial, diba? Which is yung accusation, allegedly, kay Vice President Sara Duterte na may alleged na misuse of public funds.
At the end of the day, diba, it all boils down to, napakasimple lang naman daw, sabi ng ibang luminaries ng discussion, it all boils down, kung mahina ang evidence, di mag-acquit. Diba? But do not dismiss. Diba? Like in the court of law, kung may trial ka sa RTC, diba, magka-file ang prosecution, kung maganda yung evidence, file nila sa husgado, tapos pag nag-go to trial sila at flawed yung kaso or mahina yung kaso o walang evidence, just like Laila de Lima, i-acquit mo.
Yeah.
Diba? So bakit hindi nila...
That's what din eh.
Diba? So bakit yung judge mismo dito ang mag-acquit na, magdi-dismiss na
without the
look at the evidence.
Itself.
And when you see the evidence, as judges, teka lang, ang evidence mo mahina. Yeah. Let's acquit. Don't kayo mag-acquit.
That's what other senators have been saying. Si Senator Kiko Pangilinan, si Senator Bam Aquino, Senator Win Gatchalian,
para klaro
Senator
lang,
Ping Lacson.
Hindi panawagan ng mga media outlets, luminaries, mag-guilty verdict. Ang panawagan, let's all look at, kasi I also wanna see the evidence.
Yeah,
kung mahina ba or
mahina, edi ako.
Diba, kung nag-witch hunt lang ba kayo, inuubos yung pera namin, at least alam natin may kasalanan Congress. Pero kung may evidence, let's give a guilty verdict.
At saka,
very
we have
simple.
to clear it also na pagdating sa impeachment trial, wala namang makukulong eh. Wala pang makukulong sa impeachment trial kung kunyari, may guilty verdict, makonvict si VP Sara. Ang mangyayari lang sa kanya is hindi na lang siya perpetual disqualification. Now, kung gusto niyo ng yung mga kaso, dyan papasok yung mga filing of cases.
Pero kasi kung may criminal act kasi sa loob ng impeachment trial, the impeachment court cannot, tama ka, hindi pwede ko. But,
unless may kaso nga, which is magkakaroon naman.
Kaya nga, but usually daw, historically, not only in the Philippines, pag may criminal content yung ginawa mo sa impeachment court for past leaders, usually it directly leads to a criminal case. Up to the impeachment court to file it. Or any members,
Pero pag impeachment pag-uusapan, impeachment of the public official lang.
Yeah, I agree. But at the end of the day, malaking bagay din kung mag-guilty si VP Sara. Hindi ka na pwede mag-hold ng office.
Yes, perpetual disqualification.
For a Duterte, that's big because public servants yung mga yan.
Especially malaki ang kanyang survey, di ba? Yung mataas ang kanyang
ngayon, number 1
trust and approval rating sa 2020.
Yung recently,
All right, in other news, Cavite 1st District Representative Jolo Revilla says he will refile the proposed wage hike bill when the 20th Congress opens. This comes after the Senate failed to finalize a joint version with the House before the 19th Congress adjourned. Revilla, co-author of House Bill number 7871, earlier backed a 150 pesos daily wage hike for private sector workers. This was later consolidated into a 200 pesos wage hike, which the House approved in March, but it stalled without Senate action. Calling the delay a painful setback, Revilla stressed the urgent need for wage reform, citing rising cost of food, utilities, and transportation. He urged Congress to prioritize a unified consultative bill and said support for small businesses should come through subsidies and tax relief, not at the expense of workers. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. Former Bamban Tarlac Mayor Alice Go has been disqualified from holding a government post after a court declares her a Chinese citizen. Here is the report.
A Manila court has voided the mayorship of Alice Guo in Tarlac, ruling that she is undoubtedly a Chinese citizen. In a 67-page decision dated June 27, the Manila Regional Trial Court said Guo was never qualified to run for mayor in Bamban, calling her nothing more than a usurper of public office. Under the Constitution, only natural-born Filipinos can seek elective posts. The court found that Guo was actually Guo Huaping, born in China to Chinese parents, and entered the Philippines in 1999 on a special investor visa. A fingerprint analysis by the National Bureau of Investigation confirmed they are the same person. No valid record supported her claim of Filipino parentage, and her birth certificate wasn't registered until she was already 19. The ruling stemmed from a petition by the Solicitor General, who argued that Guo was never qualified to run, making her election void from the start. The court warned her case posed a national security risk, with a foreign national gaining access to public office using a false identity. Senator Sherwin Gatchalian welcomed the ruling and urged further legal action against Guo and those who enabled her. Senator Risa Hontiveros also hailed the development, saying the truth always comes out indeed. For its part, PAOK hailed the ruling as a major victory, saying it was a result of a whole-of-government approach.
The number of Filipinos who experience involuntary hunger at least once in the past 3 months rose to 20%, according to the latest survey by Social Weather Stations, or SWS. This marks a slight increase from the 19.1% recorded in the April 11 to 15 survey. Mindanao posted the highest hunger rate at 26.3%, followed by Metro Manila at 20.3%, the Visayas at 19.7%, and Balance Luzon at 17%. Of the total hunger rate, 16.4% of families experienced moderate hunger, while 3.6% suffered from severe hunger. The survey was conducted from April 23 to 28, 2025 through face-to-face interviews with 1,500 adults nationwide. Now let's discuss that further with Secretary Larry Cadon, Presidential Advisor on Poverty Alleviation. Sec, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Diego and Angela. Hi,
Tama po. Tama na po. Good morning. Thank you for joining us again. Second,
Yes.
hingi po kami ng reaction po ninyo dito sa recent survey na ginawa po ng SWS na sinasabi nga po mataas ang numero ng mga kababayan po natin na gugutom, specifically in Mindanao. Ano po ba sa tingin po ninyo yung factors that drive such numbers?
Well, as a government official, I would rather rely on the reports of the PSA than the SWS, because SWS is based on sentiments and emotions, while the PSA has a data-driven survey. And ang SWS naman, they only conducted for 5 days from 23 to 28 of April, so that's very short. And they do not have access to the information that are necessary to come up with such kind of conclusion. And whereas the PSA has a nationwide network of data sources. So etong sa SWS, I would rather set it aside as something that is not really that cannot be relied on by a government official like me. And medyo iba yan sa kung nakikita natin na itong yan ay inconsistent sa mga nangyayari ngayon sa paligid. Like for example, the DSWD has reported that more than 43,000 have been delisted from the 4-piece program. Bakit? Kasi sila ay mga nakakita na ng trabaho o may mga sources of income na sila. In fact, our employment rate has increased to 96.1%, which is the highest in 2 decades. So, inconsistent yung sinasabi na merong mga ganyang kataas, 33% ng nagugutom. Meron tayong 4-piece, meron tayong tupad, meron tayong food stamp. So, imposible yung mangyari yan dahil na kung makikita mo naman, wala ka namang nakikitang nakahandusay sa kalsada ng mga kalansay na taong butot balat na unlike what happened in Africa in the 1970s. And wala kang mababalitaan sa mga hospital, private o public, na merong namatay sa gutom. So medyo ano yan based on yung SWS, based on emotions and very subjective. Alam mo, yung mga tao ngayon, pag tinanong mo kung mahirap sila o hindi, at pag sila ay hindi naka-iPhone 16 na 1 terabyte, ang pakiramdam nila, mahirap na sila.
Pero Secretary, Secretary, I would like to reiterate lang po yung sinabi daw po dito sa survey question, regarding po sa sinabi nyo na kapag walang iPhone, they feel mahirap na sila. But this is the exact question that they ask po dito sa mga respondents nila. Nitong nakaraang 3 buwan, nangyari po ba kahit minsan na ang inyong pamilya ay nakaranas ng gutom at wala kayong makain? 'Di ba? Minsan, ilang beses, madalas o palagi. Yun po yung mga tinatanong sa kanila. And you said po earlier kanina na mas papaniwalaan nyo po, pagbabasihan nyo po ang Philippine Statistics Authority. Pero kayo po ba, in essence, personal po ninyong nakikita on the ground, specifically in Mindanao, that you can say na hindi po tama itong binabalita ng SWS?
Well, hindi ko nakikita yan sa Mindanao, Pero kung halimbawa yan talagang result ng sinasabi nila, then they should probably ask former President Duterte, despite the hundreds of billions of funds funneled in Mindanao, bakit nagkaroon pa rin ng hunger dyan? Or ask Vice President Sara Duterte kung saan napunta yung mga bilyon-bilyon na mga pondo na nailaan dyan sa Mindanao at bakit nagkaroon pa rin dyan ng sinasabi nilang taggutom. I would like to reiterate that as a government official, I would rather rely on the reports of PSA than SWS. Kasi ang PSA reports, ito ang tinitingnan sa national development plans, sa budgeting sa Congress, sa ano-ano pang mga policy making decisions na ginagawa ng ating gobyerno. So, we never relied on SWS. Kasi alam naman natin na in other situations, ang SWS naman ay propaganda naman ang ginagawa nila, lalo na pag-eleksyon. So, hindi ko naman sinasantabi ang SWS na. Kaya lang siguro, just because they are based on sentiments rather than data-driven and scientifically driven sourcing of data, hindi ako magre-rely dyan. Kasi iba yan sa nakikita ko in fact, by the end of this year, around 1.8, according to the data of the SWD, around 1.8 million Filipinos will be delisted from the 4-piece program, which means that the situation is getting better. And not only that, the banks reported a 7.4 increase in savings deposit compared to the pre-pandemic era. So, ito talaga makikita mo na nag-improve yung economy. Well, the mere fact that we have a 96.1% employment rate, which is the highest in 20 years, dito mo makikita na imposible na magkaroon ng 30% percent rate of people who are going hungry, na kagaya ng nire-report ng SWS.
Pero Sec,
that's very subjective. That's very subjective.
Sec, yung sa PSA, ang nagkatugma sila with SWS, sa Mindanao talaga po ang medyo alarming na nag-increase sa hunger rate. Meron nga po slight improvement sa Luzon. There's also an improvement in Metro Manila.
Yes.
What do you attribute po yung nagiging problem sa Mindanao specifically na hindi siya sumasabay masyado with Balanced Luzon based on the data? What is the actual problem? Is it food? Is it jobs? Is it housing?
Well, I think it's more on jobs because in so far as Mindanao is concerned, the development of industries there are still lagging compared to Luzon and parts of Visayas, because there are parts of Visayas that are really industrialized, like Cebu. And when it comes to Luzon, we have the Pampanga Hub, the Clark Hub, Subic Hub that are really engaged in industrial development. Medyo talaga nagkulang ng mga trabaho diyan sa Mindanao. Ang talagang makakasolve lang naman talaga ng poverty incidence ay trabaho. Trabaho at trabaho. Yun ang number one.
So,
although ang basihan naman ng pagkain ay hindi lang naman yan ang tanging basihan ng pag-improvement ng poverty incidence problem solutions. Kundi kasama na dyan, siyempre, yung education na gumaganda ngayon sa pamamalakad ni Secretary Angara. At ang healthcare management natin ngayon ay napakaganda kasi naghalos more than 10 times ang increase ng mga benefits sa PhilHealth. Kagaya na lamang ng itong sa dialysis. Dati ang nakukuha ng mga nagda-dialysis yan ay only 2,000 pesos per session. Ngayon, ginawa ni Presidente Bongbong Marcos yan na 6,500 para covered na lahat, pati gamot, pati bayad doon sa facilities, and pati na rin doon sa fees ng doctors. So, talagang totally cash out. Wala ng cash out. Ngayon, yung kagaya na lamang sa breast cancer, which is prevalent among our women. Dati ang benefit yan is only 100,000. Ngayon, ginawa ni Presidente Bongbong Marcos yan na 1.4 million. So talagang kung totally cash out na dito, no cash out dito ang mga pasyente. Meron pang bago, yung sa pagka nagkaroon ka ng problema sa puso, nagkasakit ka sa puso. Dati ang maximum benefits na makukuha mo dyan is only 300,000. So marami dyan hindi kaya magpa-opera o magpa-angioplasty o angiogram. Ngayon, ang binigay ni Pangulong Bongbong Marcos na benefits may mga diferensya sa puso ay 950,000. So more than double, triple pa. So when it comes to the approach of solving poverty situation, maraming ginagawa ang gobyerno na hindi lamang sa tungkol sa pagkain. Dahil ako, I believe that we have already addressed the food security. And although we have not yet solved it totally, but we are approaching that stage. And pagdating naman doon sa housing na binanggit mo kanina, ang Pag-ibig funds ngayon, hindi na sila basta take out lang. Dati kasi, pababayaan lang nila na yung mga developers ay mag-construct, and then pagka merong bumili, tsaka lang nila i-take out yung loan. Ngayon, just last month, nag-announce ng bagong policy ang Pag-ibig under the leadership of President Bongbong Marcos, na ang ginawa ngayon, ang Pag-ibig ngayon, which is ay total treasury budget of around 1.3 trillion. Ano na sila ngayon? Yung nagre-release na sila ngayon ng development funds
Pero
for the developers. In fact, meron ng 500 developers na ngayon na naka-accredit na.
Right.
And there are around 250 developers lined up to be accredited by Pag-ibig. So ngayon, mas mapapabilis na ngayon yung paggawa ng housing units kasi nga meron nang magre-release na ng development loans ang Pag-ibig unlike before.
Right.
Napakaraming ngayon maraming policies ngayon na ginagawa si Presidente Bongbong Marcos na talagang ang gobyerno ay ginagawa ng paraan ng lahat ng mga aspeto ng pag-solve ng poverty.
Secretary, while we recognize po all of the programs that you've mentioned na talaga pong nakakatulong sa iba po nating mga kababayan ngayon, but we cannot also neglect the fact po na even po dyan sa kalye lang po sa EDSA, sa iba mga parte po dito lang po sa Metro Manila ay may mga kababayan pa rin po tayo na mamalimos, nagugutom, walang makain. That's why marami nga pong even mga NGOs ang tumutulong dito sa kanila. So your thoughts on that po na while we recognize po yung programa po natin pero hindi naman po kumbaga parang hindi naman po nalalayo yung sinasabi po ng report na marami pa rin po sa mga kababayan natin ang nagugutom pa rin at this point in time?
Well, actually, siguro yan, hindi lang nila alam kung paano sila lalapit. Kasi meron tayong food stamps sa DSWD, meron tayong 4Ps. Siguro makipag-ugnayan lang sila sa mga barangay nila o sa mga local governments nila para ang kanilang mga problema ay matulungan din sila. Hindi ako naniniwala na walang nakahandang tulong dyan ng gobyerno dahil meron tayong tupad, meron tayong AIX, meron tayong 4Ps, at meron pa tayong mga iba-iba pang mga, ang mga local government mismo ay meron sila nakalaan din na tulong sa kanilang mga constituents dahil na magmula noong naging effective yung ruling ng Mandanas Garcia ruling noong 2022, ay nagkaroon ng increase ng 40% sa share ng IRA ang mga local governments. So, ang mga local governments ay nakahanda rin tumulong sa mga kanilang mga constituents na nagkakaroon ng mga ganyang sitwasyon sa buhay.
Siguro po hindi lang po nagiging parang...
Pamamaraan lang yan kung paano sila lumapit.
Yun, klaruhin ko lang, yung role po ng local government versus yung role ng national government. Kasi may nagsasabi daw, yung mga ibang local government, maganda daw nga yung ibang programa ng national government. Ang problema, yung trabaho daw ng ibang local government to bring yung hindi makakapunta sa DSWD or maka-avail ng program, hindi na nila inalalapit sa DSWD, kasalanan daw ng local government ito. Ano po ang nyo dito, tugon nyo dito?
Well, actually, ang problema kasi sa atin, sa ating local government ay nagkakaroon tayo ng election every 3 years.
Yes.
So, yung first year ay learning curve pa lang yan ng mga bagong elect na officials. And then yung second year, doon pa lang nila malalaman kung ano mapapatupad nila mga programa. On the third year, busy na yun sa pagkakampanya. Kaya nga ako ay advocate na dapat yung election ng LGUs ay isabay na lang rin sa national government every 6 years para makatipid. Malaki matitipid natin kapag ginawa natin yung synchronized election ng national and local every 6 years. We can probably save around 50 billion a year. So ang napakalaking pondo niya na dapat ay mapunta sa housing at sa kung ano-ano pa mga social services na dapat ay mailaan natin sa mga tao. Sad to say, marami pa rin naman talaga mga LGUs na hindi rin nila kabisado yung kanilang lahat na dapat na magagawa para sa kanilang mga constituents. Tama kayo dyan na, Diego, tama ka rin dyan na hindi talaga dapat iasa rin sa national government dahil kaya nga meron tayong kaya nga nagkaroon ng increase ng IRA ng yung national taxes, 40% doon napupunta sa
per
IRA
unit,
ng mga local government. So, pwede naman sila maglaan ng budget dyan para sa ganyang mga bagay. In fact, there is no law or there is no regulations that limit the authority of the local governments on how to spend the increase in their era. Napakalaki ng na-increase sa kanila. Imagine 40% of the national taxes ang napunta because of that Mandanas Garcia ruling, which took effect in 2022, right after the inauguration of President Bongbong Marcos.
Secretary, no, I remember you were here also a few months ago, last year ata po yun, ano, and you were also talking about that, yung baka hindi alam ng mga mamamayan natin, kababayan natin, yung mga programa ng pamahalaan, and you recognize that gap between the local government and national government. Since then that you talked about that, ano na po ginawa ng office nyo to address this problem? Then apparently hanggang ngayon din po, yun pa rin po nakikita natin.
Well, actually, this is a responsibility of the Department of Interior and Local Government. But since President Bongbong Marcos has an instruction, has a directive that we should work as a one-approach government, ang my office, nagpaplano kami na magkaroon kami ng mga sit-in symposium with each province na pwede namin mapuntahan para mailahad namin sa kanila kung ano-ano yung mga pwede nilang magawa na makapag-resolve din dito sa ating poverty alleviation programs. Sapagkat hindi naman pwedeng iasa sa lahat sa lahat-lahat sa national government kasi sila nga itong may direct na pamamahala, may direktang komunikasyon sa kanilang mga constituents. So we are planning to conduct seminars and tuturuan din namin sila o bigyan namin sila ng mga suggestions on how to approach these issues. And since nagkaroon na rin tayo ng bagong private partnership program na naging naisabatas noong 2024, ay marami ang magagawa ng mga local government units ngayon na mga proyekto na pwede nilang gawin na hindi gagamit ng pondo ng gobyerno agad sapagkat pwede nilang itap dito yung private sector. But they do not know how to do this. Ang ginawa ko dito, kinapisado ko ito, and whenever they want to discuss these things with us, then tuturuan naman sila kung how to approach these matters. Marami kasing mga proyekto ngayon na pwedeng gawin ng mga LGUs na hindi na nila kailangan asahan pa ang national government. Marami silang pwede ipatayo na mga local infrastructure nila na pwede sila makipag-partner sa mga private corporation or private individuals upang lalong mapa-improve nila ang services sa kanilang mga constituents. And as of now, there are already more than 500 submissions in the PPP Center of the various public-private partnership programs or infrastructure projects that are already lined up. And there are pending 250 applications or submissions in the PPP Center. And kung tutuusin, maliit pa ito dahil napakalawak ng ating bansa. Kaya nga gusto naming magkaroon dito ng public information drive upang malaman ito ng ating mga kababayan o mga LGUs upang makatulong din sila sa national government how to achieve the 9%, at least 9% reduction of our poverty incidence rate by the end of the term of President Bongbong Marcos.
All right, we are one with you and of course with our kababayan. At the end of the day ay maging inclusive po lahat po ng inyong programa para po sa ating kababayan para po pagdating sa mga survey na ganito, hindi po nila nararamdaman yung kanilang kahirapan po. Alright, maraming salamat po sa inyo, Secretary Larry Gadon, Presidential Advisor on Poverty Alleviation.
Maraming salamat din sa inyo at magandang umaga sa inyo lahat.
In other news, a Muntinlupa court has upheld the acquittal of Representative-elect Laila De Lima and her former aide Ronnie Dayan on charges of conspiring to traffic illegal drugs at the New Bilibid prison. RTC Branch 204 Judge Abraham Joseph Alcantara reiterated that the ruling was grounded on solid legal reasoning, stressing that the recantation of key witness Rafael Ragos cast reasonable doubt. The court emphasized that Ragos' testimony was central to the alleged conspiracy. With his reversal, the supposed link to criminal activity became legally untenable. De Lima welcomed the development, calling it a step toward closure after years of what she views as politically motivated persecution.
Don't go away because we're not done yet. Please stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
The MMDA has removed traffic light timers at 96 intersections across Metro Manila, replacing them with an adaptive signaling system that uses sensors. Instead of countdown timers, the green light will now blink 5 times before turning yellow, which stays on for 3 seconds before switching to red. MMDA Chairman Normando Artes said the change addresses issues with faulty timers and aims to discourage motorists from speeding to beat the red light. He also denied claims that the new system is a trap under the No Contact Apprehension Policy o NCAP.
Mabilis lang ha. Gusto ko nang batiin nyo yung bagong timer. It's very effective.
Really?
Mas gusto ko to kasi I've been wondering bakit kala ko may sira. Kasi pag pa-approach tayo ng intersection, biglang nagbi-blink. So parang kakabahan ka dahil usually pag nagbi-blink ang isang stoplight, in other words, nag-offline siya. So napansin ko lang before we go, napansin ko lang dito sa bagong system ng MMDA, pag nagbi-blink na yung traffic light, kahit green ha, ang dami nagsastop na sa intersection. Pansin kasi pag may timer, pag may nakita kang 2 seconds,
pwede pa.
Tatapakan mo yung gas, sasahabulin mo yung intersection.
Which is bad also.
Ito I've noticed this last few days now driving, pag nagbi-blink na, people are stopping. Kasi parang nagpapanik sila, blink, they don't see how many seconds they have left. Ayaw nila maipit sa gitna. So they all stop already.
So, hindi ko alam eh, kasi tutulog ako sa biyahe.
Yan ang dyan. Typical side passenger, natutulog. Anyway.
But it's good to note that.
All right, let's move on. France and the Philippines strengthen their defense, energy, and climate cooperation as they mark 78 years of diplomatic relations. Mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho reports.
Marking 78 years of diplomatic relations, the Philippines and France are reinforcing a partnership rooted in shared values, as discussed by French Ambassador to the Philippines, Marie Fontanelle, in the 14th Ambassador's Lecture Series on Friday.
It's a great opportunity to reflect on what is already a 2-year mandate. I arrived 2 years ago in the Philippines with a strong mandate to contribute to strengthen our political, strategic, bilateral relationship.
Fontanelle stressed the importance of strengthening sovereignty, taking example the cooperation in defense and security, infrastructure, as well as green, reliable energy. Fontanelle noted that the second pillar, people-to-people exchanges, is just as critical. France is investing in higher education partnerships, youth engagement, and open dialogue on culture and human rights.
This is key in diplomacy to do more together. We need to get to know each other among diplomats, but among two peoples. And that's why people-to-people exchanges are key for us. Human rights is always an important priority on our diplomatic agenda, and it's also a great way to get into knowing better the situation in the Philippines and to engage into discussions that are from time to time not easy discussions.
She also emphasized joint advocacy for climate action, freedom of navigation, and the protection of oceans. France is encouraging the Philippines to be among the first to ratify the BBNJ Treaty, which strengthens protections for biodiversity beyond national jurisdictions.
And the United Conference on Oceans was, of course, dedicated to increase the international mobilization of governments, but also the private sector, the civil society, scientists, for the protection of oceans, and to also kind of contribute to increasing the protection of the oceans by international law. But we are confident that the Philippines, in your tradition of being strong advocate of international law of the sea, will join the group of the first ratifiers of this BBNJ treaty, which increases the protection of our high seas.
As both nations look ahead, France and the Philippines continue to build bridges built on trust, strategy, and a shared vision for the future. Mobile journalist Denise Valdesancho. We are One News.
Now in sports, Filipina tennis ace Alex Ayala has climbed to a career-high world number 56 in the latest WTA rankings. This comes following her runner-up finish at 2025 Lexus Eastbourne Open. The 20-year-old surged 18 spots after reaching her first WTA final, coming all the way from the qualifiers and defeating higher-ranked players along the way. Ayala's previous best ranking was number 69 in May. She now heads into Wimbledon, where she's set for a first-round clash against the defending champion.
Alas Pilipinas fell to host Vietnam in straight sets 20-25, 21-25, 21-25 in their VTV Cup opener on Sunday. Brooke Van Sickle, MJ Phillips, and Alia Malaluan delivered key plays, especially in the third set where the Philippines pulled even at 15-all. Laila Cruz and Malaluan scored late to extend the match, but Vietnam held firm to seal the win. Alas Pilipinas looks to bounce back against Sichuan Wuliang Chun of China today. Yeah, first yung congratulations
kay Alex Ayala
also,
of course.
She's in history of tennis, first Asian, well, not Asian, but first Filipina na ganyang kataas ang ranking niya.
High age din niya eh, no?
Actually, even yung, if you look at the match, no, even yung laban nila all the way to the end, medyo sa end nag-collapse na si Ayala. Parang she was fatigued already nung dulo.
Napagod na.
Napagod. But it was a tough fight. Well, 59, number 59 sa rankings, and she'll be starting her Wimbledon quest.
Yes.
As we all know, Wimbledon is the pinnacle of all the tennis tournaments.
Players.
Yeah, parang yan ang pièce de resistance trophy.
So,
if you have a Wimbledon trophy.
basketball, parang FIBA.
Hindi naman, hindi naman. Parang NBA.
NBA yun.
Madaming tournaments, Wimbledon would be the NBA nila.
Wow! Congratulations. No way but up.
Wimbledon has
Alex Ayala.
Wimbledon has bred a lot of great tennis players from Boris Becker, Pete Sampras. You also have pangalan niya, I forget, McEnroe. Nadal, millennial player.
Si Nadal tuwang-tuwa.
Federer, Roger Federer.
And then, kasi nag-training sa
until now, si Nadal handles the career of Alex Ayala.
Very proud of her. All right, in other news, Signal has entered the microdrama space with the launch of Signal Play Microdrama, a collection of short-form vertical series designed for mobile viewing. The new format is now available exclusively on the Signal Play app for Android and iOS users. Signal's debut lineup includes I See You, starring our very own Dimples Romana, My Father's Last Wish with Dylan Minor, and Three Queens, and a Baby top billed by Christian Bables. The move highlights Signal's push to innovate digital content while supporting Filipino storytelling alongside global titles from Dashflix. Viewers can stream the first 5 episodes of each microdrama for free, with full access available at a daily subscription rate of 20 pesos.
Di ba na yan, nauuso yan, nakikita natin sa Instagram, yung mga love story, mga foreign books na may mga portrait mode stories. Ngayon meron na tayo our own. Pero yung mga kasi, yung ginagawa ng mga foreigners, parang ang papangit ng acting ng iba. Kaya yung
pero ito, may Dimples Romana pa.
May Dylan Minor ka pa. Hindi, iba naman, in general naman, Filipino actors are really good. Bihira ka makakita ng hindi marunong kasi up to theater, down to kahit yung indie and B-movie actors natin, they're very good. So, exciting to.
Yes.
Diba?
For free sa una, and then tapos pag magsasubscribe ka na daily, 20 pesos.
Mali mo, pwede ka doon.
Hindi ako, baka ikaw. Congratulations po sa inyo.
May quote ako, kaso hindi ata pumasok dyan. Libali na.
Sabihin mo na.
Ha? Oy, thank you pala for joining us. Tsaka sa lahat ng bumati ng birthday ni Angel on Friday. Thank you very much. And for joining... Ha? No, I'm not. Di wag na.
Always choose kindness. Yan ang ating laging default quote for the day. Okay. Sige, go.
Ikaw na mag-end.
So, and that wraps up today's episode of News and Views. Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro. He is Angelo Castro III. Year One News. All sides, all the time.